The guy had his taxi light on. That's pretty much the only way we could see it. And talking to the pilot afterwards, he said he saw the deck for about 5 seconds, had one chance to make a play for it, and he was there. And that's how interesting it can get out there.
Well, there are times, because of the nature of the mission of the aircraft, there are times when we're sitting on a catapult getting ready to launch, the entire time telling ourselves we're not really going to go, we're not really going to go. They wouldn't launch us in this, and all of a sudden, boom, off you go in the cat.
We were working off the coast of Puerto Rico one night in workups for our cruise, and it was a dark night, like it always is at the ship, and we ran into a thunderstorm. So we knew what was coming for us, and when it was our turn, we got to the point where we were supposed to call the ball, and we had to call Clara, meaning we could not see the landing environment, we could not see the ball. And the LSO, the landing signal officer, saw us and heard us. He gave us a couple calls. The pilot responded immediately, and about 5 or 6 seconds later, he finally saw the ship. I never did see the ship. Right before we landed, I just remember seeing a rush of lights come up. We slammed into the deck, hit real hard. We got aboard, trapped, shut down, and that was the most memorable landing I've ever had. And if I don't ever have another one as a pilot, that'll be fine with me. That's fine.
In the years after the end of the Vietnam War, U.S. foreign policy was directed to another part of the world, the Middle East. 4 years after the fall of Hanoi, an Islamic revolution swept Iran. Then the war in Lebanon erupted, and the disturbing rash of terrorism that followed demanded the attention of the U.S. Navy's Sixth Fleet. On December 3rd, 1983, an F-14 Tomcat was taking pictures of suspected terrorist headquarters in Lebanon when a surface-to-air missile streaked past it. The F-14 knew that this was no ordinary SAM. It was the Soviet-built SA-7 heat-seeking variety, which posed a threat to even the most sophisticated of aircraft. The presence of these missiles caused grave concern to the United States, and that night the Reagan administration issued a retaliatory strike order against terrorist strongholds in Lebanon. The strike would be handled by the aircraft carrier USS Kennedy to avoid involving any other country by using their airstrips. The aircraft chosen to carry out the attack was the A-6 Intruder. For reasons that have never been fully explained, the assault was ordered to take place in broad daylight. Not an auspicious environment for the nocturnal intruder. What is even more bizarre, however, is the attack was scheduled to begin at 7 a.m. Flying in from the west, the pilots would have the morning sun in their eyes, while the Syrian artillery gunners would have the sun at their backs. One of the intruders would never make it back to the ship. The plane was hit by a Soviet-built SAM while diving towards its target. The pilot was killed sometime after the ejection, and the bombardier navigator taken as a hostage. None of the men involved in the attack had chosen to leave early in the morning. That decision had come from Washington, far from the familiar carrier decks of the Sixth Fleet. Whether or not the attack on Lebanon would have been more successful had it been carried out at night is a matter of history. What is certain, however, is that all intruder crews undergo intensive training in mock night attack missions. For an aviator in training, these night missions can be a hair-raising experience. Pilot Pete Rasnick remembers taking a new bombardier navigator on his first night flight through the mountains.
We're down in this valley in West Virginia with the mountains going up both sides, and all you could see really was the black silhouettes of the mountains on either side of the airplane. and really nothing in front but a few maybe small lights on the ground. And we got down in there to the lowest altitude we're allowed to go at night, and this squadron in. I said, hey, look outside, see what this looks like. It's the first time he'd ever done that. And he had his head in the radar hood. He said, no way, I'm not looking out there. I did it once, I'm not doing it again.
Weaving through mountain valleys at 300 knots in total darkness is clearly an unnatural experience. Over the years, the A-6 community has developed ways of making night flights easier on the crew. Pilot Greg Buck explains one of these innovations.
These are night vision goggles. They basically take a spectrum of light that's not visible to your naked eye at night and amplify it around 30,000 times. Makes the horizon appear, makes mountains appear, trees, whatever. Basically does not turn night into day, but it makes us able to see much the ground at night. Hold this for 1 sec. This is how you put them on.
Another helpful innovation used by this second generation of Intruder pilot is the simulator. Although this simulator can introduce the trainees to the fundamentals of flight, there is no substitute for the real thing. This flight simulator, located in Oceana, Virginia, consists of an authentic A-6 cockpit placed in the center of a perfectly spherical room that provides 360 degrees viewing surface. Because this particular simulator is used to train pilots on the East Coast, its terrain reference is an accurate simulation of the eastern United States. Here we see the pilot approaching a power plant in West Virginia that is used in mock attack exercises. As we approach the target, the bombardier activates his FLIR, or forward-looking infrared system. The FLIR uses the heat given off by the surface below to provide an image of the target at hand. With this image, the bombardier can pinpoint any weakness, like an air vent or a generator, and then guide his bombs in with laser-guided accuracy. When the pilot changes course, the bombardier will hold his target, even as the plane is leaving the scene.
Yeah, it'd be at about a mile and a half.
Yeah, on speed, looking at 120. There's a beam, there's on speed. Okay, coming around.
120, 600.
As with real Navy flight operations, the carrier landing is the most difficult stage of this simulated flight. However, a mistake on the simulator simply results in more training. In reality, the smallest mistake means disaster.
Coming through 400.
Our pilot boulders, meaning he missed the wires and was forced to power out in a touch and go. To boulder is not uncommon for naval pilots. If the pilot is coming in too high, it's better to miss the wires altogether than to try to plunge downward at the last second. The greatest cause of carrier accidents results when a pilot overcompensates downward in a desperate effort to catch the wire.
Power, wave off, wave off!
On this attempt, our pilot gets aboard with a perfect 3-wire. In over 3 decades of service with the Navy, the Intruder has undergone a continuous phase of improvements to keep pace with modern technology. But one aspect of the Intruder mission that has not changed over the years is the camaraderie between the 2 men who fly it. In the Intruder, knowing the person you fly with is as important as knowing how to operate the plane. Bombardier Mike White knows the value of this relationship.
The importance of flying with the same person on a regular basis can't be overemphasized. Just the basic mechanics of flying itself, there's a lot involved, basic brief of takeoff procedures, landing procedures, and so forth. You fly with the same person and do the same routines over and over again. The two of you are used to that and pretty much know what the other person is going to do.
However, even more important than knowing each other, the two must trust each other.
When he says he has a target on radar, I can't tell. I can't see the radar, and I have to trust him, and that's just the trust that you develop between each other. On the other hand, he has to trust me to fly the airplane low, to keep my scan going, don't get distracted by something and fly us into the ground.
Trust is paramount in this aircraft, and the designers took that into account when they designed this aircraft by having us sit next to each other, and we'll fly down 200 to 500 feet in mountain valleys in the pitch black, and that elicits a lot of trust between the two, because I can't be looking at the radar and he can't be watching exactly what I'm doing. One of the reasons they pair us up as standard crews, so you get used to your crew members' idiosyncrasies, things like that. You know exactly what they're going to be doing, and they're very predictable, and you don't have to waste time guessing.
Yeah, I trust him, or I wouldn't fly with him. In fact, I trust any of the pilots that are in this squadron, that I've flown with. If I guess for whatever reason I didn't, I wouldn't fly with them again.
In the years to come, most of these two-man crews will be split up as the Intruder is slowly phased out of service with the Navy. Although it proved effective in the Persian Gulf, the austere physical environment of the 90s leaves little room for aging military hardware.
You fly an airplane for 7, 8 years, 1,500 hours in it, you're going to develop some type of attachment to it. Yes, we all wanted to fly Tomcats, that's when Top Gun came out, but I've really learned to love the mission. Really regret seeing it go. Yes, the capabilities are behind what we can make and what else we can use out there. But it's going to be sad to see it go. We're flying an airplane that's the same age I am. My parents are always concerned about the fact that they're afraid things are going to fall apart around me. But other aircraft, we see them come and go. We see them complaining about their maintenance problems and their shortcomings. But we always seem to make do what we have in the A6 community. We always seem to overcome any obstacles that are thrown in front of us. We're used to having to fight all the time instead of having things come easy. And I think the airplane is still very capable and still has very much a part of our nation's defense.
Conceived by the lessons learned during the Korean War, the Intruder will soon join its retired shipmates in the silent graveyard, located in the hot, dry desert of southern Arizona, very far from the familiar pitching deck that has been its home on the sea for 2 generations of naval flyers.
Coming up, break through the brush and go on the hunt. From chilly Alaska to a sweltering Africa, watch out. High action and adventure continues on Wild Discovery. Coming up only on the Discovery Channel. Explore your world.